This constitutes a security hazard.
I can't stand Monopoly. I really don't like it. As a board game, I think it's terrible. I think it's so boring. Goes on for way too long. I think just as a gameplay experience, if you're behind in Monopoly, it's so difficult to catch up. So any of the tension that's there just kind of disappears relatively quickly, and then the rest of the game just ends up being a bit of a chore. Obviously, if you're winning, then you're going to keep on winning. Which, maybe that is reflective of what it's like having a Monopoly, but I just don't like it. As again, probably has something to do with the fact I'm not very good at Monopoly, has to be said. I always lose because I am just far too honest, kind, nice. I think people who are good at Monopoly tend to be savage, bitter people who hoard all their wealth and make life harder for everyone else. But, that's just my opinion on Monopoly. Thunderbirds Monopoly, on the other hand, I mean, the gameplay is no better, but the Thunderbirds nature of this Thunderbirds Monopoly set from the 50th anniversary of Thunderbirds, gotta say, pretty decent. Not absolutely perfect, maybe a bit rushed in some areas, but overall the adaptation process is not too bad. Now, obviously, they have slapped all sorts of different brands and licenses onto Monopoly over the years, and in fact, this isn't even the first Thunderbirds Monopoly board that's been made. For the 2004 live-action movie, they did a Thunderbirds version of Monopoly, so it's not a new thing, and it feels, I suppose, it feels pretty good to have a Thunderbirds Monopoly board out there. And I have to say, they did an okay job with the adaptation of it. So let's get into what they changed, what they didn't change, what makes it a Thunderbirds Monopoly game. As I say, gameplay, basically exactly the same. It's about going around the board, buying up properties, and extorting your friends and family. That's essentially what that is. But what they have changed, some of the principal things they have changed, include the locations. The properties that you buy on the board are all different locations from Thunderbirds. They've kind of tried to group them by region, by continent. So, for example, down here we've got London-centric locations, so things like the Bank of England from Vault of Death, or London Airport from Trapped in the Sky. That's all down there. Up here we've got Thompson Tower, the Nevada Desert from Martian Invasion, and the Empire State Building, of course, from Terror in New York City. And then right over here, down at the most expensive end of the board, you have the Atlantic seabed from Operation Crash Dive and Seascape from Atlantic Inferno. So, really, Seascape is the most expensive property on the board. Presumably that's before it was completely destroyed. But yeah, so you've got lots and lots of different locations represented here from all across the world and all across Thunderbirds, and I think that's neat. I think that's a clever way of adapting it. I'm not really sure if there was a better way they could have done that, so fair enough. Not sure if I agree with all of the pricing that they've come up with for all these different locations. For example, right at the very bottom end are all the Australian locations, with Melbourne and Charity Springs. Charity Springs from Cry Wolf, right down there, right at the bottom. And as I say, Seascape is right at the top as the most expensive property on the board, which is an interesting choice. And then sort of somewhere in the middle, you've got things like the casino from the Duchess assignment. I would have thought that would be a wealthier, higher-end place than an oil rig, but, who am I to judge, I suppose. So that's a kind of big feature of this adaptation, is all the different properties are Thunderbirds locations, which is, pretty cool. And the actual property cards, I should say, are pretty much the same as you would expect from a standard Monopoly board, really. There's not much to them other than just the details of how much you pay if you've got to rent a house or things like that. That sort of thing. The house, talking of houses and hotels and that sort of thing, those pieces are nothing special. They're basically the same as you would get on a standard Monopoly set. Maybe the colouring is slightly different. They've gone for this sort of silver for the houses and translucent blue for the hotels, which is, quite nice. Fits with the colouring of the rest of the board, I suppose, but I wouldn't have said those were especially Thunderbird-y colours that they've chosen there. Likewise, the dice are just two standard six-sided dice, nothing special about those. Where we get into some of the more of the customization would be things like they have swapped out chance cards and community chest cards for what they have called fab cards or FAB cards and Yes M'Lady cards. And let me just read you a couple of examples here of what those cards say, because I think some of them are quite good fun. So just picking at random here. One of the fab cards I pulled is Dr. Corder's Psychiatric Assessment. Pay 50. That's a very niche reference to Day of Disaster there. Let me pick another one. Another fab card would be You Win at Parola Sands, collect 200. That's a reference to Moving Your Dead. So there's stuff in there that's like really quite niche, really deep diving into Thunderbird stuff there. But then there's actually more general things like you're paid 100 for perfecting safe nuclear fission technology, which is interesting. So, what I like about this is that you could play it with someone who's never seen Thunderbirds before, which is a good thing to have at like Christmas and stuff like that, playing board games with family and stuff like that. You want something that everyone can kind of get into. So they've kind of adapted it, but they haven't taken it sort of too far, but there is stuff in there for the die-hard Thunderbirds fans to enjoy as well. Let me read you a couple of the Yes M'Lady cards. They've got standard stuff like Advance to Go, but then they also have things like take a trip on the Andabad Express. If you pass Go, collect 200. Advance to Seascape, Advance to Thompson Tower. This is all stuff to just move you around the board, basically, and do extra bits and pieces. The Bank of England pays you for improving their vault security, collect 50. That sort of thing, these basically function very similarly to Chance and Community Chess cards in proper Monopoly. So there's that. Monopoly Money is exactly the same. I don't think they've done anything to these to make them look more like Thunderbirds Money in any way. Not even sure what Thunderbirds Money would actually look like, but that money is exactly the same. And then probably I should mention the utilities and train stations have also been swapped out for Thunderbirds-y things. So the train stations have now been swapped to Fireflash, Skythrust, the Pacific Atlantic Monorail, and the Andabad Express. So those are your kinds of forms of transport that you can buy as well. And then the utilities are the Monte Bianco Solar Reflector and the San Martino Dam. So really niche little references to stuff from Thunderbirds, but that's how they've managed to sort of swap those out, which I think is good enough. And then probably the final thing, and arguably the selling point of this whole thing, is the playing pieces, which always my favourite part of Monopoly, really. Never had much interest in the actual game, but the playing pieces are always good fun. We have 5 little metal Thunderbird craft that represent playing pieces, which I think are quite nice. What I believe they have done with these, I could be wrong, is they've actually taken the moulds or the designs for the playing pieces of the Modiphius Thunderbirds cooperative board game, which would have come out around about the same time as this. And the reason why I think that is because you can still see the little holes in each of the vehicles for where in the cooperative board game you would place the little player pegs into the Thunderbird craft. So you can still see those holes on these molds. So that's what makes me think that they've just kind of borrowed them, which, it's fine, I guess. If you've got to reuse things like that, then I suppose fair enough. But but they're actually quite nice. There's a few oddities about these. Like on Thunderbird 1, they have decided to flip the tail fins so that they're back to front, so you get quite an odd look to that. Doesn't quite match what you see in the TV show, so that's interesting. Thunderbird 2 has got a few weird proportions, but I think that's mostly because the tail plane is so kind of would be quite flimsy, so they've had to adapt that a little bit to work. Thunderbird 3, again, pretty sure that's almost exactly the same as it appears in the Modiphius board game with the base board on it and everything. Thunderbird 4 is very straightforward, nothing much to speak about there. And then Thunderbird 5, I have to say, Thunderbird 5 is probably the most detailed of all of these pieces, actually. I think that's really quite nice. It reflects well, but as I say, pretty sure those are adapted from the cooperative board game. But yeah, in terms of the artwork, not much to say about that really. They've essentially taken some stock illustrations of the Thunderbirds vehicles, which have been used on all sorts of pieces of merchandise over the years. They've arguably maybe been used a little bit too much, but you know, they look nice enough, I suppose, and they kind of fit with the, you know, the Monopoly man, the illustration of him, so I guess the art style kind of fits quite well. They've gone for this sort of, I don't know whether this is a Monopoly thing more than anything else, they've gone for this sort of weird textured, sort of slightly worn aesthetic to the board. You can only really see it when you get up close to it, which I don't love it, but it's fine. Everything's still very clear and visible and everything else, so yeah, not too bad. Oh, and the other thing is that one thing they haven't changed from a standard Monopoly board is things like go and jail and free parking. That's all exactly the same as you would get on a standard Monopoly board. The box is nothing special. The instruction booklet is just, you know, telling you how to play Monopoly, basically. What I like about this is that from the very start they say, here are all the things that are the same as a standard Monopoly game, and here's what is different. I like that. Very, very straightforward. Makes it easy to kind of, for everyone to get on the same page with this. So yeah. Overall, good adaptation, I would say. There aren't too many things that I would change about it. Yeah. Unfortunately, you can't improve on making Monopoly the game any better, sadly. So I have to say, I have not actually played this very much. I think I played it once when I first got it back in 2015, and the only reason I got it in 2015 is because I was sent it to review when I was writing reviews for the Jerry Anderson store of all the different pieces of 50th anniversary merchandise that were coming out. I was sent this. I was like, okay, great, I've got to play Monopoly now. So I did, but after that, I've got to say, didn't play it much afterwards. But, you know, it's nice. And I think if you wanted to swap it for your standard Monopoly board, you know, it probably serves the right function. But there we go. That was the Thunderbirds Monopoly board game, I suppose. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if you want to see other videos like this. I've got a few other board games that are perhaps a little bit more proper, like the cooperative board game from Modiphius. Very nice indeed. Would love to talk about that at some point. That would be a very big video, because that is a big game. There is a lot to get into with that. But yeah, if you enjoyed this sort of thing, please consider heading over to patreon.com/securityhazard, where you can give what you can, but only if you can, and get access to exclusive extra videos. But you can also just like, comment, and subscribe on this video. That would really mean a lot as well. And of course, check out the Security Hazard Show, which is a podcast that I do with Ben Wolf-Page, where we talk about all things Jerry Anderson every single week. For now, thank you very much for watching. Go and have a game of Monopoly. Go and make your friends and family hate you if that's how you choose to live your life. But otherwise, I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye for now.
Security hazard negative.